West Ham are in talks with Brighton for Evan Ferguson, but, and there's a big but, if you pardon the expression, Brighton will not let him go out on loan unless it's an obligation to buy, and they won't do business until the end of the transfer window. Bit of a whopper, really. I guess, right, firstly, the first thing is I'm pleased. I'm pleased West Ham are looking at other strikers. And Ferguson is a decent option. The big problem with Ferguson is that he is an injury-prone striker. So he's got all the promise in the world. And I'm a little bit worried about this, particularly given West Ham can't afford to get this one wrong. Not monetarily, and just not in terms of us getting yet another striker badly wrong. West Ham just posted profits of, was it £57 million for that was for the last financial year. Next year's profits will be down because we're dealing with the period that we're in now. No European football, not doing particularly well. The money from Declan Rice will no longer be coming in unless West Ham can make this big £100 million sale on Mohamed Kudus, which apparently that's off now because of the injury to Jarrod Bowen. Then there's not going to be some big influx of money that's going to offset the loss. And then they reckon between 50 to 80 million loss next season. With that in mind, we're not in a position to be able to hemorrhage money and lose it. Like, what did he lose? We lost £20 million on Sebastian Haller. We lost £10 million on Gianluca Scamacca. We can't keep allowing that to happen. We're definitely going to lose money on Nicholas Füllkrug. Now, the trouble is, obviously, Füllkrug's come in. It's perhaps a little bit harsh to say he's not hit the ground running. There's really hardly anyone that's played well at West Ham this season, but he's been injured. He's coming back from injury. He doesn't look great, but you think, OK, fine. He's come back from injury. It's going to take him a little while to get going. But it's hard to make the case that that's been a successful transfer, right? But with that in mind, even if you dismiss all the stuff that he wants to go back to Germany and he's homesick and he didn't want to come here in the first place, and all that stuff, which is really, we don't know the facts on that. The fact we do know is we bought him for a lot of money and he's been injured. The last thing we want to do is go and buy another injury-prone player. And that's why the loan deal is good on Ferguson. Well, it is good unless the obligation to buy is in there. Now, funny enough, I just spoke to Gio about this, and he said it depends what the obligation to buy is. The obligation to buy is for £20 million. It's absolutely fine. But rumour has it that Brighton want £60 million for the striker. Well, firstly, I don't think he's worth £60 million. And let's just get this absolutely right. He is, although he's played well and he showed some promise in the Premier League, he is still unproven, really. But in the same way that, maybe you could look at him in the same way that we did John Duran. Start of this season, we were willing to pay £35 million for the promise of John Duran. At that point, the John Duran now is very different to the John Duran who we were bidding for in July, right? But we bid £35 million for him. We weren't prepared to go to 40. So therefore, it stands to reason that, okay, you might be able to argue some nuanced difference between the two and their progress. Maybe Ferguson is a bit more established in the Premier League than Duran was at the start of the season, but you're still dealing with promise. If we weren't going to pay £40 million for Duran, are we really going to go and pay £60 million for Evan Ferguson? I don't think so. I really, really don't think so. Then you've got this problem of we're going to have to wait until the end of the transfer window before deciding. We can't do that. Monetarily, we can't afford to do that. But also, we can't afford to do it in terms of points on the table. I don't know at what point we write this season off. I would argue that I think the club have already written this season off in terms of qualifying for Europe. In fact, you go back to Füllkrug himself. Füllkrug said himself when he did his last interview, which he gave to the German TV or radio station, I can't remember now who it was, but he turned around and he said, I know it was risky joining West Ham. West Ham is always going to be risky because they have no European football this season. He said, but it looks like they're not going to have European football next season or even the season after. That's what Füllkrug said. Now, look. First of all, I don't particularly like what he said, particularly in predicting we won't get it next year either. It was all a bit defeatist, wasn't it? It was all a bit glass half empty. Sorry, but if you're looking at it now, I do think he has written off the season. So we think we're not going to qualify for Europe this season. And I understand why, but I also think the club have, and that's why we've moved so slowly, and that's why we haven't replaced Hoon and Lopetegui yet, because we're thinking, oh, well, do you know what, as long as we don't get relegated. I'm not sure whether I have. I still think I still have it in my... I still have that hope that West Ham can replace Lopetegui, we'll get a good manager in, and then whatever. If West Ham if we could string 3 wins together, and then we don't have, we don't go on a particular losing run, and then, we can get some other results, maybe, just maybe, we can get up into the top half. Get into the top half with 8 games to go, you're in with a chance, right? I haven't quite given up on that yet. But we're going to need to bring players in quick, particularly with the injury to Jarrod Bowen. I think we're going to need to move quite quickly in the transfer window. What we don't want to do is get to a let's just wait and see situation whereby we're going to put all our eggs in one basket. It's going to be Evan Ferguson. And we'll wait. Basically wait until end of January, February. We're waiting until if we wait until the end of January, we wouldn't get to see him play until February. Then you've got a whole month's worth of fixtures where we'll even be even further out of it. That's assuming that we don't go on some winning run now, which I don't think we will. I mean, it's hard to make that case. Maybe we'll surprise everybody and beat Manchester City. I don't think that's the case, by the way. I don't even know why I just said it. I don't actually believe the words I just said. But Ferguson, I'm pleased that we're in talks with him, for him, because it shows that we're targeting players, shows that we've got our eye on it, and it shows that we're serious. We heard a couple of weeks ago that West Ham are absolutely looking to bring in a striker, and a striker is a top priority. Striker and a mobile midfielder. I'm delighted to hear both. I think they're both good news. It's one thing to hear the news, it's another thing to know that we're actually already negotiating. And it's important, was it 2nd of January today, so we should be negotiating now. But, the other bit of news is average, really. I mean, the other one is, I can't even remember, what's the guy's name, a Middlesbrough striker we're interested in him, but then so are Ipswich. I've got to say, I don't know if we could get Liam Delap, but that would be someone that would definitely interest me at the moment. He does look to be the real deal, doesn't he? And I'm not sure if what's going to happen in this window. I think a lot does depend on who we can get rid of. There are other ways to generate funds, and selling Mohamed Kudus, maybe we'll deal with that in a video tomorrow, quite possibly. But yeah, as things stand at the moment, West Ham interested and in talks with Evan Ferguson.